my husband and I are having our first child. And the second one is speaking. I do not like to get up and speak, but God's been putting on my heart that it's time to step out of my comfort zone, so I've been stepping out in small, short steps, so here's my beginning today. My mom raised me in church. Every Sunday we went to church. Whether rain or shine, sick, I was going to church. Amen. And my first encounter with God was when I was 8 years old. And I can remember, there's a lot of things I don't remember in my past, but this one thing I will never forget. I was sitting in the back row one night, and I felt this tugging on my heart to go up front, like God was just calling me to go up front. And my mom thought, because I'm a squirmy child, that I was just misbehaving, so she kept saying, sit down, sit down. So when I got home that night, I said, Mom, my teacher talked to me about having this robe and sin in my life, and my robe was full of all these spots because of all the things, the lies I've told and the things that I've done. And I said, Mom, I don't want these spots on my robe anymore. I want them cleansed. And she told me the only way they could be cleansed is if Jesus cleanses them. So my mom immediately said, I didn't know that that's what you were doing. So she called the pastor over, and in my bedroom that night, we all gathered around and prayed, and that was my first moment of giving my heart to God. Amen. Now, I was young. I didn't really understand what it meant, to follow Jesus. So I decided at 18 years old that I was going to go out and do things my way. I had lived under a very strict household since I was 18, and I wanted to go out and see what this big world had to offer me. And I grew up in a small town, so it was time for me to leave the town, leave the nest, and see what was out there. So I packed up my bags and went to Branson, Missouri, and became a country music singer. And for a year, I sang every night. I wore the fancy gowns. I did the mingling. I was always on a diet. And after a year of this, I thought I was fulfilling my dream. And I thought, something's just missing in my life. This is just not getting it. This world just doesn't seem to have anything to offer me. So it was time for me to renew my contract, and I thought, okay, I'll just renew this contract and sing again, and just keep on doing this lifestyle. And God had something else in store for me, and it's taken me 10 years to figure out why he shut that door, and I'm so thankful now why he shut that door. But there was new owners that come in, and they had new singer come in, so they didn't have me for the next year. So I said, well, that's fine. I just won't sing anymore. If they don't want me to sing in their show, I just won't sing any. So I decided to find out there's got to be something else in my life that I can do besides sing. So I decided to pursue the life of sales, because most of my family members, that's all they ever did was sales. And I decided to shoot for money, material things. I wanted a big house. I wanted a fancy car. I wanted everything that the world had to offer. But yet, the more things I had, the more items I had, the more clothes I had, the more jewelry I had, I still wasn't satisfied. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Why was my life going the way it was going? After 2 divorces, I'm ashamed to say, I started thinking, maybe it's time that I let God lead my life. And I remembered maybe I should change my choices. And so I don't believe anything in this life happens by chance. I believe God has a total purpose and plan for everything. And I won this trip to Rome. I'd hardly left the United States, let alone going to another country. And before I left for this trip, my heart was not right with God. But I prayed this prayer. I said, Lord, I ask you to give me a wonderful man, a man that's going to treat me good and love me. And if he has dark hair and brown eyes, that'd be an extra bonus too. So I got on this plane to Rome, and I met my future mother-in-law. But once again, what are the odds of meeting your future mother-in-law in Rome? And she fell in love with me, gave me her son's email, and said, hey, email this guy. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to email a total stranger. That's not something I do. So when I got home, she called me and said, well, have you emailed my son yet? I've already told him you're going to be emailing him. I'm like, okay, now the pressure's really on me. So I emailed Alex, and he come back from Iraq and met me I hadn't been to church in like 10 years, and it was a rebellion. Not just against my mother, but against God. I just was not going to go. I wanted to go to church because I wanted to go to church, not because anybody wanted me to go. And I even knew, I have a mother that's a prayer warrior. She prayed so hard for me, and I'd always tell her, Mom, I'll go next Sunday, and she'd be on her knees praying, and I would be trying to sleep in. I could feel, all of a sudden I'd wake up and like, Mom's praying for me right now, I can feel it. And so I'm like, I can't sleep, might as well go to church. But I didn't. So after being married for a year, I told my husband, I said, babe, I want to start going back to church. And he said, okay, whatever you want to do, I support you. So we went to this church where this pastor called Pastor Mac one day, he was speaking about having a personal relationship with Jesus. He was talking about Christians, people coming to church every Sunday, but not truly having that relationship with Jesus. And I thought, that's been me my whole life. I don't have a clue how to have a relationship with God. And I felt like he was talking to me, like I was that one person that nobody else was in the room, and he was just focusing in on me, and I'm thinking, how does he know where I'm at right now? And so when I got home, the next day I sat at my kitchen table, and I said, Lord, I don't know what this is all about, but I know that I have not fully surrendered and gave you my life. And from this day forward, this life is yours. And I'm asking you to take it. I've made a mess of my life. This last 10 years have been nothing but heartache and pain. But I'm done. I'm done running from you, and I'm giving you my whole life. So from that day forward, I knew that I had a new beginning and a fresh start. And I knew that God, this whole time, had given me free will and a choice. He said, you can choose the world, or you can choose me. And the world had nothing to offer me. I had done everything that the world said was awesome. I had the money. I had the nice things. I had everything that was supposed to make you happy, but it didn't. The only thing that's ever made me happy was having a personal relationship with Jesus. So I moved on. Alex and I moved to California, and we found this church. And Pastor Clyde was baptizing some people, and I felt like all of a sudden God was calling me to get baptized again, because when I was young and got baptized, I didn't understand. I just knew that this was something I was doing because it was the next step after my asking Jesus into my heart. And I thought, this time when I get up there and get baptized, when I go under, it's my old life, and when I come out, it's my new life in Jesus. Well, I chased Pastor Clyde out the door, and I said, you gotta get baptized. And you were going to do it on a certain Sunday. And I said, no, I have to do it this Sunday because some family's coming in. I had no idea why it needed to be that Sunday, but it had to be that Sunday. Well, when I went home to Missouri 6 months ago, my mom keeps records of everything that happens to her daughters and her Bible, good or bad. And back in 1888, the third week of April, was when I had asked the Lord into my heart. The day that Pastor Clyde baptized me was 24 years later. The day was the same day that I asked God back into my life. So when I got baptized, it was actually the same date that I had gotten saved when I was 8 years old. And you can't tell me these things happen. So today I decided to give my testimony because it's been a year since that day that I got baptized. And today I'm going to sing a song called Jesus Saved Me. It's the first song that I ever wrote, and it's the song that gives my whole testimony in it from the beginning to the end. never feeling complete inside. I often searched and needed more. Then one day, Jesus knocked on my door. He said, "My child, let me in, and I will wash away your sin." And Jesus saved me. Oh yes, He saved me. And on that day, He forgave me. My heart forever will be changed. Oh, because Jesus saved me. Sometimes Satan tries to steal my joy. He makes me think that I'm not needed anymore. But I know my Jesus, He hears my prayers. He understands me and He always cares. I often searched and needed more. Then one day, Jesus knocked on my door. He said, "My child, let me in, and I will wash away your sin." And Jesus saved me.